Well, my friends, I've had some requests to do a video on lighting for your home, and I have to confess, I have put it off for a while because lighting can be tricky, even for us designers. It is not always an easy thing to get right. But with a little understanding of basic lighting principles and some design tips and tricks, it is absolutely achievable and can make a massive difference in your home. So let's get right into it. Okay, let's begin with just a bit of an overview of some of the basics of interior lighting theory. So there are three main types of lighting. There's ambient, task, and accent lighting. Ambient lighting is the general light source or sources used to illuminate the entire space. So an example of ambient lighting would be something like a ceiling fixture in the middle of a room. Task lighting is a more focused, directional light source used to aid in specific activity. Examples of task lighting include things like a desk lamp or pendant lights over a kitchen island. Accent lighting is a form of lighting focused on a specific item or area. It could be a spotlight used to cast light onto a wall, or lighting in a glass cabinet, for example. A well-lit interior uses a combination of ambient, task, and accent lighting. Having multiple light sources leads to a space feeling varied and layered and, of course, functional. So now let's look at some ways that we can go about achieving this. If you are in a position to plan all of your lighting from scratch, it can feel like kind of a daunting task, but I am here with some tips to help make the process a little easier. Okay, let's go there. Let's discuss the big light. Now I know people have very strong opinions about overhead lighting, but even if you hate it, the reality is that most spaces are going to need some form of it. Even if you rarely use it, there are just some tasks that require your room be brightly lit. This is especially important if you are lacking in natural light. Cleaning, for example, much easier to clean your house if you can actually see what it is you're trying to clean. So when it comes to ceiling lighting, you may decide just to go with one central light fixture, or you may opt for multiple recessed or flush mount fixtures spread throughout the space. And sometimes you might want to do a combination of both. There may be times where there's very clear functional reasons to go with one of these options, but sometimes it is just going to come down to your own personal preference. For me, I tend to stick to one central light fixture in places like bedrooms, where having just one ceiling light typically is going to provide an adequate amount of light for the room, and also where, you may want that light fixture to function as a decorative element to add more interest to the space. Living rooms, on the other hand, are often better served by recessed lighting or multiple small flush mount lights. They tend to be larger spaces where one central light may not be adequate, and there may be aspects of the layout better served by more localized light sources. I would, however, caution you from using too many flush mount lights in a space. You don't want your home to start to resemble an airport runway. And rather than placing those recessed lights too close to the middle of the room where they're just casting light onto the floor, try placing them closer to the perimeter where they're going to cast light onto the walls. It's just going to add more interest and dimension that way. In dining spaces, you'll typically want to incorporate a hanging fixture of some sort, so a chandelier or a pendant light above your dining table. This is an excellent location for a dimmer switch so that you can really set the tone and create the right mood. If you have any spaces in your home with high ceilings, these are going to be places that, again, you're going to want to use suspended or hanging light fixtures. For one, this is really functional. Ceiling level lighting may just be too high up to even be effective. But this is also a matter of aesthetics. A beautiful hanging light fixture is going to draw your eye upward and bring attention to those high ceilings. If this is a really large or open space, you may also want to include some additional ceiling lights just to provide extra illumination and also just to give you more flexibility in how you light the space. A room with a successful lighting plan is going to have a variety of light sources at different heights and levels. If all of your lighting is in the middle of your ceiling, your space can end up feeling really flat and lifeless. You want to incorporate additional lighting that can help to illuminate different objects and surfaces within the room. This is where spotlights, wall sconces, and table and floor lamps all come into play. So let's discuss sconces. There are so many ways that you can incorporate a good wall sconce. Use them to light a stairway or hall, add to the ambiance of a dining room, or in place of table lamps in a bedroom. In a living room, you could try sconces to flank your fireplace. Wall sconces can also be great alternatives to an overhead vanity light in a bathroom, as they will cast fewer shadows and therefore be more flattering. Now, if you are not hardwired for sconces, there are plug-in options available, and we're also starting to see more options for wireless sconces that use rechargeable LEDs. Or you can also DIY your own by using rechargeable LED bulbs, which is what I have done here in my living room with these vintage sconces. Table lamps and floor lamps are also, of course, important elements to consider in an effective lighting plan. If you're not in a position to change any of your hardwired lights, lamps are a great opportunity to improve the lighting in your space. And with the vast selection of new and vintage lamps out there on the market, they're also an excellent way to bring style and character into your home. Table lamps on end tables and consoles, floor lamps next to armchairs, little lamps on shelves, or even your kitchen counter. A variety of lamps in a room is always a good idea. Now, while we're on this topic of lighting levels, we should also review the recommended heights for lighting installs. The light over a dining table should generally be between 30 and 36 inches above the table. Pendants over a kitchen island should typically be around 30 to 40 inches above the countertop. Now, if you're a really tall person, you might want to err on the higher side just so they're not shining right in your eyes and you're not bumping your head on them. The rule of thumb for wall sconces is to keep them around 60 to 72 inches above the floor. Although if you're using sconces in lieu of a table lamp, install them at a similar height to where a lampshade would be. If you're using sconces to flank a bathroom mirror, aim to have the lights at around eye level to avoid shadows being cast down onto your face. As for table lamps, you want the shade height to be roughly eye level when seated. You don't want to look over and be staring up or down into a bare bulb. When it comes to floor lamps, I find the main deciding factor in what height to buy really comes down to how the height of that lamp looks with the scale of the elements around it. A tall, skinny floor lamp might feel unbalanced with a chair that's quite low. Proportion really is key here. Speaking of proportion, this is an important consideration when selecting any light fixture. And when it comes to things like chandeliers, pendant lights, even flush mount fixtures, you're going to find that there is very often more than one size option to choose from. You want to consider the scale of the light fixture in comparison not only with the size of the room, but also with the other elements around it. And I have found in my experience, when in doubt, go with the larger size. A slightly oversized light fixture tends to feel better and look like a more intentional style choice than a light that is underscale. Scale is also important to keep in mind with lamps. Now, we already touched on this a little bit with floor lamps, but it's also important with table lamps. Not only do you want to choose a lamp that's going to sit at the right height, but will also look balanced with the piece of furniture it's sitting on. Of course, there are a ton of different style options out there for light fixtures and lamps, so do whatever appeals to you. But one thing I do want to mention is regarding light fixtures and lamps with exposed bulbs. Now, the popularity of these types of fixtures can really vary depending on trends. I think we all remember the industrial style lights with the Edison bulbs that were so popular for a while there. And there certainly are lots of cool fixtures out there with exposed bulbs. I still really enjoy these pendant lights that I bought for my kitchen. But be aware that exposed bulbs do tend to give off a harsher light. Shades help to soften and diffuse light. Now, to be totally honest, I hardly ever use my kitchen pendants, so I really did just buy them for the aesthetics without any real concern for the quality of light that they would provide. When it comes to lighting that's more about function than aesthetics, such as recessed lighting, there are lots of options. The old pot or can lights of the past have been replaced by sleeker options. And if you aren't hardwired for recessed lighting, they now make these little LED disc lights that are going to give you a very similar minimalist look, but fit a regular light outlet. I actually swapped out my hallway boob lights for these, and they have worked really well. Another option that I think sometimes kind of gets a bad rap is track lighting, but there are actually some really sleek and stylish track light options out there. And track lights are super functional, allowing you to adjust and angle each light to hit where you need it. They can be great in spaces like kitchens where functionality is of the utmost importance. Task lighting is something you definitely want to pay extra attention to in spaces like home offices or kitchens, where proper lighting is especially important for the tasks at hand. Overhead lighting can cast shadows onto your workspace, like kitchen counters or a desktop. So lighting from another direction can counteract that. So such task lighting as under cabinet lights or a desk lamp can be great ways to accomplish this while also adding additional illumination to the space. We've already looked at some of the more commonly used forms of accent lighting, but there are certainly other options. Uplighting is maybe not the most commonly used type, but it is a great option. If you're a person with plants in your home, this can be a really cool way to add light to a corner of the room. Or running a row of spotlights down a hallway can be super impactful. With all of the options out there now for LED, rope, and strip lights, I'm also seeing people find some really cool ways of incorporating those into their homes. I would maybe just caution you to use a little bit of restraint with these. I know they can be a lot of fun, but you probably still want your house to look like a home and not a nightclub. But you do you. Lighting temperature is a term we use to describe how warm or cool a light source is. It's measured in kelvins, and the warmer the light, the lower the number of kelvins. The higher the number of kelvins, the cooler the light's going to be. In terms of interior design, we usually gravitate towards warmer light sources. They're going to just be more aesthetically pleasing in your space, and they're also going to be more flattering to our complexions. Now, most designers are typically going to recommend that you stay at about 2700 K for your lighting. But I have noticed when it comes to light fixtures with integrated LEDs, they're often set at 3000 K. Now, really, this is fine. I have spec'd 3000K light fixtures for lots of projects. It's really never been an issue, but you're probably going to want to avoid going with anything higher than 3000K. They do make fixtures that are 4,000 and 5,000, but they feel pretty cold and sterile. They're really meant more for like commercial projects than they are for residential. When it comes to light bulbs, again, you're going to want to stick with warm white as opposed to cool white or daylight bulbs. Or you may want to consider investing in some smart bulbs. Not only are they going to give you the ability to control the temperature of your lighting, but they can also act as a dimmer. So this is a great option if you don't already have dimmer switches in your home. As us designers, you know how we feel about a dimmer switch. Always recommending dimmers. All right, thus concludes Lighting 101. I hope that I was able to provide some helpful information for you guys on how to go about lighting your homes. I think this went okay considering my apprehension about making this video. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you watching. I hope we see you at the next one, and bye for now.